Part 3. The Sketchbook. After the night at the Han River, something changed between them. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but in quiet ways that frightened Adaeze more than obvious romance ever could. Minho started messaging first sometimes. Short messages. Simple ones. Did you eat? Cold today. Wear gloves. Your phone battery alive? Each message made her smile harder than it should have. And slowly, Seoul stopped feeling like a place she was surviving. It started feeling like somewhere she was living. Wednesday nights became theirs without either of them saying so. Sometimes they sat in silence inside the cafe, while working. Sometimes they argued about movies. Sometimes Minho attempted humor so dry it took her 3 business days to understand he was joking. "You are actually funny," she told him once. "I know. You say that with too much confidence. I suffered for this personality." She nearly spilled her drink laughing. But there were still things she did not know about him. Large things. Important things. Minho spoke about emotions carefully, like someone handling glass. He never mentioned relationships. Never talked about childhood memories unless she asked directly. And whenever conversation drifted too close to personal pain, his expression changed slightly. Not cold, just distant. Like a door quietly closing. Adaeze noticed it every time, and somehow, that made her more curious. One snowy Thursday evening, she stayed late in the design studio finishing a brutal assignment deadline. Her eyes burned from staring at screens for too long. At nearly 10 p.m., her phone buzzed. "Minho, still alive?" he said. She smiled immediately. "Barely," she said. Then another message appeared. "I'm downstairs." Her heart skipped so hard she actually frowned at herself. Ridiculous. She packed quickly and rushed toward the building entrance. Outside, snow drifted softly beneath yellow streetlights. Minho stood near the curb with one hand in his coat pocket holding a small paper bag in the other. "You brought food? You forget to eat when stressed." Adaeze narrowed her eyes suspiciously. "You observe too much. You complain too much." She laughed and grabbed the warm bag eagerly. The smell hit instantly. Hotteok. Sweet Korean pancakes filled with cinnamon and sugar. "You remembered I liked these. You nearly cried eating one." It was emotional. "You are emotional. That is because I am African. We believe in feelings. We believe in surviving." She stared at him. That explains so much, actually. For once, Minho laughed first. A real laugh. Low and brief, but completely genuine. And suddenly Adaeze realized something dangerous. She wanted to hear that sound again. Often. "Come," he said after a moment. "I need to stop by my studio." "Your architecture office?" He nodded. "It's nearby." The building sat near the river in a quieter part of Seoul. Tall glass windows overlooked the city lights, while soft jazz played somewhere inside. The office was mostly empty except for a sleepy receptionist who bowed politely as they entered. Adaeze looked around slowly. Models of buildings covered large tables. Blueprints hung on walls. Tiny white structures stood beneath warm lighting like miniature cities. Everything looked elegant, precise, controlled, like him. "This is beautiful," she whispered. Minho removed his coat calmly. "It is stressful. Rich people stress." He ignored that. She wandered through the studio curiously while he disappeared briefly into another room. That was when she saw it. A sketchbook resting partially open near the corner of a desk. At first, she only noticed the drawing style. Detailed. Soft. Beautifully human. She stepped closer. Then froze. A woman stared back from the page. Dark skin. Braided hair. Head tilted slightly while smiling. Adeze's breath caught. The woman looked Nigerian. Her fingers moved slowly as she turned another page. Another sketch. Same woman. Different angle. Another page. Again. The sketches felt intimate somehow. Not inappropriate, but careful, observant. Like the artist had spent a long time studying her face. Adeze's stomach tightened unexpectedly. Who was she? Why had Minho drawn her so many times? And then she turned another page. This time, her heartbeat stopped. Because the sketch looked like her. Not exactly, but enough. The eyes. The smile. The shape of the braids. Her pulse began rising painfully fast. "Don't." Minho's voice cut through the room sharply. Adaeze turned immediately. He stood several feet away, frozen completely still. For the first time since meeting him, he looked genuinely shaken. Not calm. Not careful. Afraid. She slowly closed the sketchbook. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. Silence filled the studio. The soft jazz music suddenly felt far away. Minho walked toward the desk and picked up the sketchbook carefully, like it contained something fragile. Adaeze forced herself to speak. "Who is she?" His jaw tightened slightly. For a moment, she thought he might avoid the question entirely. Then quietly, "My mother." The answer stunned her. She looked back toward the closed sketchbook. "The woman in the drawings?" He nodded once. "She was Korean?"
No.
Adaeze blinked, then slowly understood. "Wait." Minho stared down at the sketchbook before speaking again. "My mother was Nigerian." The room suddenly felt smaller. Adaeze could only stare at him. "You're joking." "I do not joke about family."
But
Everything inside her scrambled trying to process it. His face. His quietness. The way he watched her, sometimes like he understood loneliness too well. "My mother came to Korea when she was young," he said softly, "before it became common." Adaeze sat down slowly, without realizing. "She died when I was 10. His voice remained calm. Too calm. Like someone who learned long ago that grief became easier when spoken without emotion. "My father never talks about her," he continued. "But I remember small things." He looked toward the window. Music in the kitchen. Spicy food. Yoruba words I no longer know how to pronounce. Adaze's chest tightened painfully. All this time, part of him had been carrying pieces of her world. "I started drawing her because I was afraid I would forget her face," he admitted quietly. Then after a pause. "When I first saw you in the cafe, you reminded me of her." The confession hit harder than she expected. Not romantic. Not simple. Something deeper. More emotional. And suddenly all the small moments between them rearranged themselves inside her mind. The patience. The familiarity. The comfort. Minho looked at her finally. For the first time since meeting him, his eyes held no distance. Just honesty. "I think that is why talking to you feels," he searched carefully for the word. "Safe." Adaeze felt her heart break a little hearing it, because she understood that feeling completely. After the studio night, Adaeze could not stop thinking about him. Not in the simple way she had before. Before, Minho had been mysterious. Now he felt real. Painfully real. And somehow that made him harder to stay away from. For days, her mind replayed the moment he said it. "Talking to you feels safe." No one had ever said something like that to her before. Not with that kind of honesty. Not like it cost him something to admit. And the worst part? She felt the same way. Which terrified her. Because feelings were dangerous when you were thousands of miles from home. The next Wednesday, snow covered most of Seoul in soft white layers. The city looked quieter beneath it. Softer. Like even chaos had slowed down. Adaeze entered the cafe with cold fingers and immediately spotted Minho near the window. Same seat. Same coffee. But this time, when he saw her, something in his expression changed instantly. Warmth. Small. Subtle. But there. And suddenly her entire chest felt too tight. "You're staring," she said while removing her coat. "You are late. By 3 minutes. In Korea, that is a crime. In Nigeria, people arrive when God permits." He sighed dramatically. "You are impossible." She grinned while sitting down. And for a while, everything felt strangely easy again. Comfortable. Dangerously comfortable. They talked for hours that night. About architecture. About Lagos traffic. About childhood foods. About the ridiculous beauty standards in Korean media. At one point, Adaeze showed him old photos from home on her phone. Family birthdays. Church clothes. Christmas celebrations. Minho studied each image carefully. "You smile differently there," he said quietly. The comment caught her off guard. "What do you mean?" He hesitated. More freely. Her smile faded slightly. Because he was right. In Lagos, she had smiled without thinking. In Korea, happiness often felt borrowed. Temporary. Like she was still waiting for permission to belong. Minho noticed her expression immediately. "I did not mean something bad." "No," she said softly. "You're just observant." He looked away after that. Like he regretted saying too much. Adaeze noticed he did that often. Whenever emotions entered conversation, he retreated slightly afterward. As if vulnerability embarrassed him. Later that night, they left the cafe together and walked through snow-covered streets toward the bus stop. Seoul glowed beautifully during winter. Streetlights reflected against white sidewalks while distant music drifted from restaurants and shops. For once, Adaeze forgot she was foreign. Forgot she was lonely. forgot how difficult life here had been. Beside Minho, the city felt less cold. Then suddenly his phone rang. He stopped walking immediately. The screen lit briefly.
Dad.
Minho's expression changed at once. Not annoyance. Worry. He answered quickly in Korean. Adaeze could not understand the words, but she understood tone. Sharp concern. Urgency. His shoulders tightened slightly. Then silence. Finally. I'm coming. He ended the call and looked apologetic instantly. My father. What happened? He forgot where he was again. Adaeze frowned. What do you mean? Minho hesitated. Then quietly. My father has early dementia. The words landed heavily between them.
Oh.
He gets confused at night sometimes. For the first time since meeting him, Minho looked exhausted. Not physically. Emotionally. Like someone carrying responsibility alone for too long. You should go, Adaeze said softly. He nodded. But before leaving, he suddenly reached into his coat pocket. Wait. He pulled out a worn leather wallet and removed something carefully from inside. A photograph. Old. Slightly faded at the corners. He handed it to her. Adaeze looked down slowly. Then froze. A woman stood smiling beside a much younger version of Minho's father. Dark skin. Bright eyes. Beautiful braided hair. And beside her, a little boy around 8 years old wearing oversized glasses. Minho. Adaeze stared silently at the image. His mother looked alive in a way sketches could never fully capture.
Warm.
Joyful. The kind of woman who probably filled rooms with laughter. She's beautiful, Adaeze whispered. Minho looked down at the photograph quietly. Yes. Something in his voice almost broke her heart. She used to sing while cooking, he said softly. Very loudly. Adaeze smiled faintly. That sounds Nigerian. My father hated it. She laughed softly. But he still listened? Minho nodded once. Every day. Snow drifted quietly around them while the city moved in distant lights behind. Then Minho looked at her carefully. You really look like her sometimes. The words made her chest tighten, unexpectedly. Not because it felt romantic. Because it felt emotional. Deeply emotional. Like part of his past had collided accidentally with his present. Adaeze looked back at the photograph. Then at him. Do you miss Nigeria? The question surprised him. I've never been. But part of you comes from there. Minho stared toward the snowy road ahead. I think, he paused carefully. Part of me has always been looking for it. The honesty in his voice hit her hard. Because she understood that feeling too. Searching for belonging. Searching for home. Searching for pieces of yourself in unfamiliar places. And suddenly, beneath falling snow in the middle of Seoul, neither of them felt completely alone anymore. Then headlights appeared down the street. A taxi. Minho slipped the photograph carefully back into his wallet. I should go. Adaeze nodded. But neither moved immediately. The moment stretched strangely between them. Heavy. Quiet. Important. Then Minho finally spoke again. Adaeze. Yes. His eyes held hers for one dangerous second too long. I'm glad you missed the wrong bus that night. Her heartbeat stumbled instantly. And before she could answer, he stepped into the taxi and disappeared into the snowy Seoul streets.